Today, we're going on a kind of intellectual expedition. We're setting out to uncover a map, but not a map of any place you can visit. It's a map of every story ever told, dreamed up by one of the most brilliant literary minds of the 20th century, Northrop Frye. Frye started with this monumental question. What if there's a hidden blueprint, right? A secret architecture that underlies all of human storytelling? What if, say, the tragic fall of a king and the happy ending of a romantic comedy are really just two movements in the exact same grand symphony?
And get this, the clues to this whole grand theory, they weren't found in some polished final draft. Nope, they were buried deep inside his private notebooks, a chaotic, brilliant mess of thoughts, doubts, and breakthroughs. And today, we're going to dig them up.
All right, so our first stop is the dig site itself. We're going to sift through the raw material of Frye's mind to see exactly how he went looking for what he called the total form of literature. See, for Frye, criticism wasn't about saying whether a book is good or bad. It was something so much bigger. He actually defined it as the perception of total form. He wanted to see the entire verbal universe all at once, to understand how all stories from every culture, every era, fit together into one giant, beautiful structure. But this was not easy. The sheer scale of this project was just overwhelming. He was constantly drawing these diagrams, creating systems, trying to make everything fit. At one point, he even jokingly diagnosed himself in his notes, writing, "I'm suffering from schematosis," basically an obsession with making schemas. And he was his own toughest critic, for sure. As you dig through these notebooks, you see this raw, unfiltered process of creation. After pages and pages of complex theory, you'll just stumble upon a blunt, honest dismissal like this one. This and the former note are mostly bullshit. It's just a brilliant reminder that genius isn't some clean, straight line. It's a messy, frustrating, and honestly, a pretty hilarious process. Now, what's so cool about this is how it shows the evolution of his thinking. On the left, you can see his early, kind of amorphous ideas. These plans for books he called liberal or tragicomedy, these really complex six-part cycles that he eventually just abandoned. And then on the right, you see where all that messy thinking finally led, to a simple, elegant, and incredibly powerful structure based on the four seasons. So after years of digging and doodling and a lot of self-doubt, the fragments started to connect. The final map emerged. So let's take a look at the four fundamental stories he discovered. Okay, so here's the crucial point. Frye called these four story shapes mythoi, which is just Greek for plots or narratives. He argued that pretty much all stories are fundamentally a version of one of these four movements, and each one corresponds to a season. He really saw them as a map of the human spirit's journey. Let's break them down. First up, we have spring. The mythos of spring is comedy. Now, this isn't just about jokes, it's the story of integration and rebirth. Think of basically any romantic comedy you've ever seen. You've got this confused, tangled up society, it gets all sorted out, obstacles are overcome, and the whole story ends with a new, happier society being formed, which is usually symbolized by a big wedding or a feast. It's that feeling of renewal after a long, hard winter. Next up, summer. The mythos of summer is romance. This is the story of the successful quest, the triumphant adventure. It's the world of heroes defeating dragons, of good conquering evil. Think Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, or pretty much any superhero movie ever made. It's the story of humanity at its most idealized, the kind of narrative that powers our biggest dreams. And then comes autumn. The mythos of autumn is tragedy. This is the downward movement, the story of the hero's fall. It's all about isolation, fate, and the collapse of greatness. From Shakespeare's Macbeth to modern stories like Breaking Bad or Oppenheimer, tragedy shows the hero being cut off from society and moving towards some inevitable doom. It's that pattern of things coming apart. And finally, we land in winter. The mythos of winter is irony and satire. This is the world as a prison or maybe a madhouse. In these stories, the hero is trapped, they're powerless, and the world just seems absurd and meaningless. These are stories of frustration and bondage, showing a society that's so broken you can only really mock it or despair over it. It's the story we tell when we feel completely and totally stuck. So, okay, we have this map of four stories, but for Frye, this was way more than just a literary tool. He believed this map didn't just describe stories, he thought it described reality itself. Let's see how he made that incredible leap. Frye proposed this really radical concept he called the verbal universe. Now, the normal way of thinking is that stories are about life, right? Well, Frye flipped this completely on its head. He said that life and reality are actually inside a total system of stories. So what does that even mean? Well, it's a form of metafiction. It means that our experiences, our history, our science, all of it, it's just raw material that we are constantly weaving into a single unified story. The world isn't the thing being represented. The world is the thing being swallowed up and digested by this all-encompassing narrative. And this drawing really shows you the ultimate destination of this verbal universe. All of these stories, the comedies, the tragedies, all of them, they are all connected. They aren't separate tales, but facets of one single total story. For Frye, this all pointed towards an ultimate unifying principle he called the one word, a single utterance that contains all possible stories. And this is the key that unlocks the whole thing. The patterns he discovered aren't just a container for the story. The pattern is the story. The structure is the meaning. So the big revelation isn't just about understanding the plot of a book. It's about waking up and realizing you are living inside that plot, that you're a character in this vast, interconnected verbal universe. Okay, so this is a pretty profound theory, but what does it actually mean for us, right? Well, this is where we turn phrase map from an academic tool into a guide for navigating our own lives. We can call this idea narrative sovereignty. It's the power that comes from understanding these four primal stories. When you can see whether you're in a comedy of integration or a tragedy of isolation or maybe a satire of frustration, you gain this powerful awareness. You're no longer just lost in the plot. Now you can see the map. And this map isn't just for navigating what's happening on the outside. Frye believed it could also guide us on what he called a shamanic journey, the quest for inner transformation. His framework provides a really powerful model for understanding our own personal growth. This inner journey follows a timeless pattern you find in myths everywhere. First, there's the descent, or katabasis in Greek, a journey into the underworld of your own psyche to face what's been buried. Then comes the spiral path, navigating that messy, non-linear labyrinth of self-discovery. And finally, there's the transformed return, where you emerge with new insight and you bring it back into your life. So, I'll leave you with this question. If your life is a story, and Frye would argue it absolutely is, which chapter are you writing right now? Are you in a spring of new beginnings, a summer of heroic quests, an autumn of letting go, or maybe a winter of deep reflection? The map is in your hands.